for tuning in to the Illuminations Podcast. We love having you here. It is our mission to be a beacon of light on your journey towards conscious and mindful living. In our weekly episode, we bring you inspiring change makers in the field of spirituality, healing, personal growth, and wellness who share their insight and expertise so you can navigate your way to a happier, healthier, and more purposeful life.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Illuminations World Podcast. I'm your host Nia and I'm coming to you with another episode and I cannot wait to dive in. So this one is going to be all about thoughts and diving deep into how thoughts create our reality. So did you know that as human beings we have at least 6,000 thoughts per day? And this is the very reason why we are either in pain or joy. So I would like to invite a very special guest today, and his name is Dr. Yuvraj Kapadia. He is one of India's most well-known clinical hypnotherapists, family constellation practitioner, and holds a postgraduate in regression therapy from Tasso Institute, Holland. He has trained over 1,500 individuals and more to qualify as hypnotherapists worldwide. Dr. Yuvraj Kapadia is considered to be amongst the most dynamic and inspiring of motivational speakers with a vision to integrate and present holistic health with scientific backing. Thank you so much for joining me today, Dr. Yuvraj Kapadia. It is an honor, and I am so happy that I'm having this conversation with you today. I cannot wait to get started.
And so, Nia Roy, it is a pleasure to see you one more time. I've had the good fortune of interacting with you, seeing you in different avatars. And today, as the host of this show, it's just one more assertion that I so firmly believe for humans that each one of us has something special in us that brings us to exactly what we're supposed to do in our lives. And I sense you're getting there, which is why the joy and the effervescence and the ease with which you speak. So this is going to be fun.
Thank you so much, sir. So to start this episode, I wanted to share something. So a lot of the clients that I work with, a question that I get asked often is, how do I manage my thoughts? So let's dive into that. So what exactly are thoughts and how do they really influence our reality?
Your opening question was interesting. You mentioned a client questioning, how do I manage my thoughts? So if you note, the theme begins with I and me. Now, we can use this as a springboard or a platform to begin with what is a very classical philosophical construct. And that is, I am the Lord and Master of my universe. It's me and me, I and me. So if I am the Lord and Master of my universe, which in Sanskrit is very aptly articulated as Aham Brahmasmi, I am the creator of my universe, then obviously this creation has a protocol, has a process. And interestingly enough, thought is the absolute basic ingredient from where this process starts. So everything in short that culminates with a thought ends with reality. And that's why Aham Brahmasmi. Taking this slightly deeper, what is a thought? If we have an open forum on thoughts, so many of us will have different ideas about it. A thought is an idea, a thought is a construct, a thought is an impulse, a thought is something that encourages you to do something. We can have all sorts of interpretations about thought. And the interesting part is all of them are correct. There's absolutely nothing wrong in what you think your thought is. But the funny part is, again, it's you thinking about it. So a thought is thinking about a thought about how should it describe itself. Now we're going into the realm of subjectivity. Let's become a little objective, because objectivity binds us to a common construct. which is science. Yeah. Science is objective.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the most basic approaches of science, which is a gift from Albert Einstein to us, is that everything in and around us is energy. That's something that science is at peace with. Everything is energy. E is equal to mc squared, energy in matter, interconvertible at square the speed of light.
Light, yeah.
So if everything is energy, so is every construct. And thought is a construct. So thought is also energy. And very simple school physics will tell us that energy exists only in two forms. Either potential, which is static, or kinetic, which is moving.
Yeah.
So if thoughts, in my understanding, represent the most basic form of potential energy in this cosmos. Potential energy represents potentiality, and which is why thoughts by default become the most basic potential ingredient that you need to actualize something into practicality or reality. And which is why one of my favorite lines when people ask me, is something meant for me? Is there something in my destiny? And I have simply one question. Can you think about it? Because if you can think about it, then the potential for it to happen exists, which means it's possible. But if you can't even think about it, then there's absolutely no way in this universe that it is going to come into your reality. So thoughts then become the most basic building block that have within themselves the potentiality to create reality. This is where we start our journey with thought.
Wow. So once we have a thought, that clearly affects us in some way in our physical body, right? And what would you call that? And okay, so we have, like I said, we have about at least 6,000 thoughts in a day or more. So where do we go from there? Like, what does that mean, and how does that really affect us?
All right. So if thoughts are the most basic form of potential energy in this universe, then the space around us is full of thoughts. Now, imagine this space and imagine millions of thoughts as potential energy particles that are actually around you. And yet you mention that we process approximately, say, 6,000 thoughts. That means from this vast, infinite pool of thoughts, something or some process has to kick in to draw those 6,000 thoughts to us. And this is what I call as the introduction of the human antenna. Okay. So think of ourselves as electromagnetic beings who have an antenna or a radar or some kind of mechanism that's projecting from ourselves. And this antenna, this projection, is constantly beaming some kind of electromagnetic signal, which I call as perception. Perhaps if I give you an example, this will be very clear. Let's process the thought that one human is killing another human. Just a thought.
Okay.
Now, is that a good thought or a bad thought? Well, I trust nobody listening to this podcast is psychotic. So the majority, or probably everybody, would say, no, that's a ghastly thought. How can we even think that one human is killing another human? But if I just put one single filter to it, where let's say the thought that somebody who is doing the killing is the security guard of the building in which you're staying right now, and the person getting killed is maybe a terrorist who is carrying explosives that are going to blow up your building. And had this not happened right now, in the next one moment, you would be both history and mystery. Now suddenly, this thought, apparently bad, fills you with relief, fills you with joy. You go to the security guard who is technically a murderer. You hug him, you want to reward him, and you treat him as your next god because he gave you life. And conversely, If the person doing the killing is a murderer, the person getting killed is a friend of yours or a relative of yours or family member, you're devastated.
Yeah.
You're sad. So what do we get out of this example? Thoughts have no texture. Thoughts have no ego. They just are. What gives them the flavor, what gives them the potency, what gives them the cutting edge is their ability to make you feel. And that is a function of your perception. So the way you perceive a thought will decide what that thought can make you feel. And this perception is a byproduct of our social, economic, educational, and religious programming. Which is why each one of us will perceive a thought in a completely different manner.
So can you dive in a little bit about the social, economic, educational
and religious programming?
Yes.
Okay. So this takes us back to the moment in our lives, the critical moment, the most vital moment, which is when we arrive in all our glory with our birthing process. You know, it's strange. None of us laugh at birth. We all cry. It's almost as if there's a part of us that knows where we are going, and it seemed very exciting before, and now we don't know what's going to happen. But the long and short of it is we basically come almost like a clean slate. And after that, as we start to grow up, the society in which we live, the education that we receive, the financial upbringing influence, and then finally our culture and our religion. All these become external programs that are almost coding the software of our mind. You know, it's like how software programs have to be written, have to be coded. So these become the prime agencies that are actually coding this process, which then make you process thoughts in a certain way. It's for example, if I ask you, do you steal? And you will repel back in shock and say, no way, of course I don't steal, which is fine. It's a nice attitude to have in life. But if we have a child whose parents are pickpockets in the local transport network, and the money that comes from pickpocketing is used for the child's food, fun, chocolates, etc. Not only that, the father actually gives coaching classes to the child on how to flick a wallet. And then every time he flicks a wallet, he gets a huge reward. Love and appreciation from the parents, depending on the quantum of cash in the wallet, perhaps a Dairy Milk chocolate or a big Ferrero Rocher or a Lindt. Yeah. For this child, stealing is a way of servicing his parents. It's an act of God almost for him. So we realize that constructs, social, economic, educational, and religion are largely responsible for how we would process a thought. You and I don't steal because in our construct, our society and culture has taught us that if you do that, you're hurting somebody, it's wrong. For that boy, that's absolutely right. So it's this filter, it's this software language that then determines what a thought will make us feel. Welcome to emotions. Because our electromagnetic antenna, based on this perception, will charge thought with a certain electromagnetism. And now that potential energy begins to move. A moving energy, an energy in motion, kinetic energy is an emotion. Welcome to the world of emotions. So thoughts and emotions have an inseparable relationship which are bound together by the common thread of perception.
So now that you've just told us how we get to emotions, the very pursuit of life is happiness, correct?
Correct, absolutely.
And that's what we're all striving for, and that's exactly what we do. But in that process, we also have the flip side of it. We have sadness, we have pain, we have depression, and the list goes on.
Correct.
Why is it so hard to have a hold on these emotions? Like, why can't we control them? Why?
Great. It's an interesting question. which has a fairly deep answer to that. So if thoughts are the background or the fulcrum that generates emotions, and emotions are inexorably linked to feelings. What's the difference between the two? An emotion is a moving energy, and a moving energy gives you the power to act because it's moving.
Yeah, exactly.
And action is movement. So whenever an emotion comes in touch with us, and if we act on it, then we are instantly translating it into reality because we are acting on it. Conversely, if we fail to do that, and again, that may be due to a variety of reasons, sometimes conditioning, sometimes appropriateness, sometimes simply the space in which we are. And if we do not act or express those emotions freely, our energetic system sucks in those emotions into our bodies. And this becomes a feeling. So the essential difference between an emotion and a feeling is that an emotion is outside of you and you have the power to deal with it. But the moment you do not deal with it with your awareness, with your presence, now it gets into you and then it is a feeling in the body. Welcome to the world of discomfort in the body simply because you didn't act on your emotions when you should have.
Ooh, this opens up a lot more questions. Okay, so when you don't act up on an emotion, so where's the fine line between your, I don't know, for the lack of better words, your desires or where is the fine line between self-control and you acting upon desire? So are you saying that we should be acting up on every emotion that we feel, or what's the fine line when you say that the discomfort is basically coming from the fact that we don't act up on the emotion? What do we do about it then?
All right. Emotions are like colors that give life to the canvas of our experiences. So if we think of life as a canvas, what makes a painting beautiful is a mix of colors. Now just imagine how pathetically boring a canvas could be if it had only light colors. So what gives the excitement to the whole process of a great painting is contrast. And which is why emotions also give us the same space, the contrast. The long and short of it is the understanding of how to use them. Let's take anger. Now, anger is often considered to be a detrimental emotion. Yeah. Fact is, let's say you're working in a company and you're the head of a profit center, and sure enough, at a theoretical level, you are completely a believer of unconditional love, of acceptance of people, etc. But if you have an open policy in your office that unconditionally accepts people and their behavior for whatever they do, which means your employees can do whatever they want, there is no reporting system, they can come in at any time, go at any time, the net result is you will not make money, which means not only will you lose your job, but so will they.
Yeah.
So when you are in a business contract, you can unconditionally love a person, but behavior needs to be put on paper.
Yeah.
So if I have employees that are doing exactly what they want and are not following the protocol that I need to be followed for a certain productive result, that will give them their salary, that will give them a bonus. It's for their good as well.
Yeah.
Then I use anger very clinically to explain that, dude, you've signed up for this 9 to 6, you get paid for this output. If you don't do this, then you suffer, I suffer, and the company suffers. Now, this is the use of anger in a productive way, which makes sure that people are reporting correctly and are present on time.
Right.
The question is, do you control your emotions, or do you let your emotions control you? That is the key. As long as you are controlling your emotions, they're absolutely fine, though they may be dark. Let's take sadness.
Right.
I've just lost my parent. I'm very close to that parent. I'm feeling sad. It feels great to feel sad. Because that sadness tells me how important my father, my mother, or that person is to me.
Yeah.
I like to feel it.
Yeah.
So, all emotions, whether light or dark, as long as you feel good with them, is an indicator that they are authentic. You have the power as the adult to deal with them, and that's exactly what you're doing.
Right.
Emotions become an issue when they don't belong to the adult in us, which means we haven't acted on them, we haven't done what we need to do with them, and that's when they get sucked into our energy system through what we call as the chakras.
And what happens then?
So what happens then is, we have these energy vortices or wheels called chakras that are constantly moving.
Okay.
And these chakras are taking in energy from the atmosphere and putting it into our body.
Okay.
So when we don't act on an emotion outside of us, the chakra moves and takes the emotion into the body. And once it goes into the body, it's eventually going to find its way slowly into our endocrine glands, from where our body produces hormones, and then a little more deeper, and then it's into the DNA. So we now have all repressed emotions finally making their way into either your endocrine glands or into your DNA. This has a good side and a terrible side. The good side is that when those emotions are emotions that you feel great about, then as those emotions go into your body, go into your endocrine glands, they produce the right quantity of hormones that keeps your physical health in an absolutely tip-top shape. Not only that, when they go into your DNA now starts its magic of expression and ensures that not only your physical health, but your external environment will also reflect you feeling the absolutely same thing, which is why happy people interact with other happy people and generate happy environments that make them feel happy all over again. Conversely, depressed people and sad people feel sad from within, so their DNA feels sad. Because their DNA feels sad, their health moves into a direction in which they will feel sad again. And not only that, that DNA will work overtime to create an environment around them that will reinforce the sadness all over again. So, whatever you feel is exactly what your universe is going to reinforce back into your reality. And since those feelings are inexorably linked to emotions, and since those emotions are linked to the way you process thought, which is why thought then becomes the starting point of the way you create your reality.
And this clearly shows how, based on your thoughts and how your thoughts are, you can then identify, figure out what kind of ailments and diseases that can then manifest in your body if it's destructive, right?
Absolutely correct. So we can take a very simple example, which I think a lot of people who are listening to the podcast may relate to. One of the things that we're very scared of is the unknown. Not a bad thing, but it's the truth. The unknown makes us fearful. And that's because what is known we can control. What is known we can take charge of. We know the road, even though it may be difficult. But if you know the road, you know what to do about it.
Yeah.
Now, this sense of taking charge, being in control, is handled in an area of your body that is related to the stomach, the solar plexus area. That is the chakra of control.
Yeah.
So when you feel life is in control, you are taking in the energy of control, you're supplying that to all the endocrine glands that are producing digestive hormones, and you are also digesting your food very well, which makes you feel you're in control of your body as well. You're healthy, you're eating healthy, you're living healthy.
Yeah.
Whenever you feel life is out of control, you're scared of the unknown, you don't know what will happen next. Now, you take that same emotion of not being in charge, not having control, being fearful, and this emotion now goes exactly in through the solar plexus chakra, affects your endocrine glands, affects your digestive hormones, and that leads to indigestion, which means when life goes out of control, the way you handle your food goes out of control. And since you don't digest your food correctly, many systems in your body go out of control. Welcome to diarrhea, welcome to constipation, welcome to acidity,
IBS.
welcome to IBS, welcome to bloating, welcome to gas. Small example. And similarly, this goes on for everything to do with every aspect of your body. Whether it's your reproductive system, it's your cardiovascular system, it's your thyroid, it's your eyes. It's all a beautiful reflection of exactly what's happening to your feelings and how your body is processing those feelings.
So essentially, we are 110% responsible for our health, in a nutshell.
For sure. 1000%, not 110.
So why is it that if we now know that everything starts from a thought, right? And thoughts create our emotions, emotions affect our energies, and if from our energies it go down to our physical body, why is it that when we do go to doctors, this is not addressed?
Okay.
If it's a key part.
Of course. Let's look at a computer system. It's the best way to understand this. A computer system, for it to be functional, definitely needs a hardware and definitely needs a software. Both are important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For example, the hardware is supplied by IBM and the software is supplied by, say, Microsoft. Yeah. Now, if you take an IBM computer that has an issue in the motherboard and go to a Microsoft engineer, what is the Microsoft engineer going to do with it? It's a hardware problem. So when you're going to the doctor is a hardware specialist. He's looking at the entire body from the hardware angle, which is correct, but not completely. Because the missing angle here is the software. Now, considering the fact that thoughts make our reality, in this example, all the viruses that enter the software, if they're not addressed at the level of the software, will eventually corrupt the hardware. Now, when we take the computer to the doctor, he has no choice but to prescribe all the antivirus programs for the hardware because he doesn't know how to access the software.
Right.
But this trend is changing. So I have noticed, not just in India, but pretty much globally, because we teach in many countries, where there's a growing tribe of medical and paramedical professionals who are increasingly now seeing the mind as the invisible body or the body as the visible expression of the mind. So the future for mankind seems bright.
Wow, I love that. This was an absolutely insightful conversation, and it has opened doors to many other conversations that we can potentially have, but unfortunately we have come to the end of our session, Dr. Yuvraj. So before we end, is there anything else you would like to share or address for our listeners?
Absolutely. Perhaps for everybody who's listening to this podcast, just a thought from my side, or my 2-penny bit of advice for whatever it's worth. You are an infinite system, and it's way bigger than what you probably know or even understand. We spend at least 30% of our life sleeping. And when we are sleeping, we have no idea of what we are thinking and feeling. So my suggestion is, since we cannot control what happens when we sleep, when we wake up in the morning, if we choose to feel happy, we ensure that through the day that we are awake and we are working, that choice of feeling happy early in the morning sets up a program that makes you perceive thought in absolutely the most appropriate way that will keep you happy throughout the day. it's difficult to master what we do not know. But it would be sinful not to master what we are aware about. And we are definitely aware about ourselves when we wake up. So my tip is, when you wake up, your first focus should be a smile. Consciously smile. And suddenly you will find that throughout the day, you are making choices that bring the smile back on your face. Wake up with a tear, and that's what you'll get through the day. So between a smile and a tear, the choice is yours.
Wow, I love that so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Yuvraj. And before we end, because we have a lot of listeners who are probably looking for something a little bit more tangible when it comes to, let's say, when they are anxious or when they are scared or in pain, let's say. What is it something that they can do instantly that can perhaps shift?
Okay. So there is a very simple connection between the way we breathe and the way we feel. When we are scared, when we are angry, our breathing is fast. When we are relaxed, our breathing is very chilled. We can't control what we feel, but we can control how we breathe. So whenever you feel tense, whenever you feel stressed, whenever you feel fearful, whenever you feel anxious, with awareness, change your breathing. Just breathe in through the nose deeply and gently breathe out through the mouth as if you're blowing air into a balloon. It's the easiest and the quickest way to de-stress.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Yuvraj. So before we close our session, where can our listeners find you? And tell us a little bit about what services that you offer and how they can find you.
Okay, so I head an institution which is, I think, one of the first of its kind in the world, where we teach integrated clinical hypnotherapy to people who are desire of taking this up as a profession. It's based out of India. The website is www.eka.co.in. We have franchises in different parts of the world, right here in the Middle East. Everything that we do is courtesy Illuminations World, which is founded by Sonia Kiran Punjabi. She's a student of ours and has done much more than what I could have ever conceptualized in her field of work. So if you're anywhere in the Middle East, Illuminations is the place to go. In other countries, we have franchisees, but Eka is the headquarters, and that's based out of India.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you have a lovely day ahead, and thank you so much for joining us today, and I look forward to our next conversation.
My pleasure. As always, have an awesome day.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all the listeners for listening and tuning in yet to another episode. Catch you in the next one. Thank you. Take care and goodbye.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love to have you tune in again next week as we discuss more engaging topics on relationships, health, career, self-care, and spirituality. If you'd like to help support this podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave us a rating and review. We'd be extremely grateful. To catch all the latest from us, you can also follow us on Instagram at Illuminations World or visit the Illuminations World YouTube channel for more inspiring content. See you again next week, and until then, live light.